Reports from the Malawian border with Mozambique say over 9 buses ferrying Malawian repatriates from South Africa have crossed the Mozambique side of the border into Malawi, but are now stranded on no man's land. Authorities on the Malawi side have apparently not given the go-ahead and clarity whether the repatriates should be let free to join their families or get tested and quarantined first. The Malawi government had sent 4 buses to South Africa to evacuate stranded Malawian nationals because of the lockdown. The move was in response to an outcry from many Malawians living in South Africa who have been suffering since the country started a lockdown in an effort to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Reports stated that several of these people escaped from the quarantine site. Now, Malawian journalist Daniel Mababa has been following this story for quite some time now, and he joins us via Skype from Lilongwe in Malawi. Daniel, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Globe.
Thanks for having me, Simpire.
What is the latest with regards to tracing those who escaped from quarantine?
So they are yet to be brought back into quarantine. The health authorities that we've been speaking to say they hunt for those individuals, about 100 of them, 92 to be precise, that escaped quarantine at the Kamuzu Stadium in the commercial capital of Blantyre. Are still on the loose in their communities across the country. These are people, some of them come from the northern region, some from the central part of Malawi, and some from some districts in the southern region. And they have not been traced yet.
Okay, so what is the government's response with regards to their laxity, with their laxity in ensuring that everybody is well quarantined?
The task force that's managing the COVID-19 pandemic in Malawi has admitted it was ill-prepared to handle these Malawian returnees coming from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Mozambique. There were issues, most of them administrative and operational, and they have indeed admitted the laxity itself, but they have now strengthened the quarantine centers. We have noticed this with the group that has just arrived in this country today. They identified 2 centers. These are teacher training colleges that are not operational at the moment because of the closure of schools. So one center is in the south, another center in the center. That center in the central region here in Lilongwe, where I'm speaking from, is now housing about 140 Malawians deported today from South Africa.
And of the 400 that have been repatriated from South Africa and elsewhere, and how many of those were tested, and those who have fled, do we know their status?
So this weekend alone, or this week alone, we have received somewhere close to 800 Malawians either being deported or self-repatriating from South Africa. There were 400 that were quarantined and escaped. Out of the 400, the government says 92 of those tested positive to coronavirus. And like I indicated, they are still on the loose.
You know, before the escapees, or before these people escaped from quarantine, the government was accused of mishandling the whole situation around coronavirus, and they were also accused of being ill-prepared to tackle the spread of this coronavirus. So where is the government then in terms of ensuring that everybody is tested and ramping up efforts of tracing and tracking those who are suspected to be, coronavirus positive?
So the efforts to trace the 92 that escaped and their results turned positive are still underway. I should believe that exercise should be easy because the people have their names, where they live, and all their personal information details. So that should be easy. We just haven't seen them being so proactive enough in the search operation. I should believe using the Malawi police, using the Malawi Defense Force, they should be able to trust them. So on the operational aspect of, or on the state of preparedness to handle returnees or indeed people that have tested positive. We have quarantine centers stationed across the country. There are issues, of course, of weak security systems. I mean, the 400 that escaped quarantine are not the first group to escape. There was another group that escaped quarantine at a center in Blantyre. We haven't heard of those people being brought back into quarantine. So it would appear that this laxity is continuing, but we are yet to see or hear how they will reinforce the security. One way of it, like I've indicated, we have now seen the use of the Malawi Defense Force in the provision of security for these people.
So what are some of the hotspots, or have the hotspots been identified? And if so, have any containment measures been ramped up or strengthened in those hotspots?
So we have, at the moment, we have a lot of the cases are being registered in the capital, Lilongwe, where I am. We have also observed trends that they are now increasing local transmission. Lately, or over the last 2 weeks, most of our cases have been imported from Tanzania. But of course, in the last 2 days, we have had 170, 180 new cases. Most of them are Malawians coming from South Africa and being repatriated from other neighboring countries, Zambia, Tanzania, and Mozambique.
You know, amongst the many complaints against the government is the lack of protective gear or the personal protective equipment, especially for the frontline workers, including doctors and nurses. So what's the status now?
I think after the cries weeks ago, the cries and strikes by medical authorities, I think that has been resolved so far. We haven't heard cases of sit-ins by medical authorities. But their complaints have been maybe reinforcements, because we have now seen medical officials testing positive to COVID-19. This was particularly in Blantyre. These medical junior health workers did write authorities to try and enhance their safety and protection during the pandemic. But I think that seems to be sorted. There are no more complaints of shortage or lack of personal protective gear for the medical officials or doctors and nurses.
Have border controls been strengthened? Are there any people coming into Malawi?
So we still have a lot of people that are trickling in. We have 3 key borders that are still open, one with Tanzania up north, another with Mozambique somewhere in the center in Dedza district, and one down south in Mwanza. 3 key borders that are still open. We are a landlocked country. We can't do without these 3 borders, but a lot of other borders, smaller borders, remain closed. So those 3 that I've mentioned are still open, goods still coming in and out, particularly fuel and other essential and non-essential goods for business people, small-scale cross-border traders.
So those who were quarantined and those who eventually escaped, we do understand that they've been complaining about the lack of water, food and proper sanitation at the quarantine center. Is that a justification of fleeing the center?
I mean, on humanitarian grounds, you would say it is justified. I mean, how do you keep people for 2 days and only feed them once? Yeah. How do you keep people in a place where there is no water? So, I mean, from a human point of view, human perspective, that must be justified. But I mean, is that justified enough against the threat? Because I mean, let's face it. From all the areas where they've moved to, they are getting in contact with people. And that heightens the threat of the transmission. So, yes, I will agree, their concerns are valid, no doubt about it. But, I mean, let's also look at the threat that they are posing. Was it possible for them to wait a little longer until the government addresses the concerns of water, food, and proper shelter? Maybe yes. But, I mean, I think they were able to observe the laxity from government, and maybe they felt it would take a little more days for government to respond.
So do you get a sense that people understand the whole issue of coronavirus and testing and contact tracing? Because we do understand that some people view the whole concept of quarantine as a punishment, yet it's meant to protect them. So do you get a sense that people are really well educated about coronavirus?
I do, with reservations. We still have gaps. Information gap in particular, I must say. We still have people in this country today that don't believe there is coronavirus. I mean, laymen on the streets, people still don't believe there is coronavirus. So there is that information gap. People to know the threat of the virus and what it can do, what it is doing to livelihood, what it is doing to the economy, to the country, the economy grounding to a halt. So we still have information gaps, yes. It's our duty as the media to try and sensitize them. But I will agree with you, there are people who still don't understand. They can't comprehend the magnitude of the pandemic at the moment. We still have so much work to do.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for chatting to us this evening. We appreciate your time.